Hello and welcome to Wise Women's Conversation. My name's Angela Council, your host for this podcast. And this podcast is a space for us to be having the conversations that women need as we discover life after 50. Together, we're going to explore topics like health, well-being, mindset, purpose, and the wisdom that helps us live the best lives as we age. So come along and join me for today's conversation. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Wise Women's Conversations. My name is Angela Council, your host for this podcast, and I want to have a chat about success. I was talking to someone the other day about this, and it's like, what is success? And how does success fit in with the way I want to live my life right now? Now, for many, many years, I chased lots of success, and that was always success that was viewed from an external point of view, making a lot of money, growing a successful business. When I used to work in corporate, it was climbing the corporate ladder, winning different awards. There was always another milestone to achieve. And, don't get me wrong, I am really, really grateful for everything that I did achieve, because that's actually allowed me to now have the freedom to choose how I want to live my life going forward. But I've been asking myself this question. I've really been asking myself this question probably for the last 6 months, when I, at the end of last year, when I kind of took a little bit of a break from my business, because it's like, well, now I'm coming back, but what does success look like now? And I feel for me that success now is more an internal job rather than an external job. But let's start with, what is success? Now, I'm sure everybody has similar, ideas about what success is all about. And from a very, very young age, we have been trained as to what success is about. It's about achievement. When we're at school, it was about getting good marks, and, doing exams and getting the best marks possible. We're all aiming for like over 90% and 100%. You were the top of the class. If you were getting A pluses, you were the top. If you were getting Ds, you weren't seen to be successful. But, maybe as I look back at that, maybe they were more successful at life than I was, because I was always striving for the A's and the A pluses to be up there at the top. And then, when I left school, when I first left school, I went straight into a job, and I, worked in a bank, and I started at the bottom, and it was like getting promotions and, climbing the corporate ladder. And it actually got to a stage whereby I got to a level within the corporate ladder in the particular bank I was working with, that there was actually nowhere for me to go. There were no more jobs available at that level until some of the older men, and they were men, started to retire or die off. It's like I got to the level of success that I could get in that particular organization. And I did that at a relatively young age as well. So it's like I was still looking for more and more success. So I went out and I started to be a consultant, and now my measure of success wasn't my level of, promotion, my level within a corporation. It now became about how much money I could earn. And the bigger the projects I did, because I was a project manager, the more money I could earn. And that was like what all success was all about for me. It's like, what status am I at? How much money could I earn? And then I kind of walked away from all of that and went back to study again and studied to be a naturopath. And some would say, well, like that was not, and it wasn't on this trajectory of success, because particularly in those days, naturopaths weren't that well known. It was over 20 years ago now. But there was something inside of me that wanted to do that. But then once I was studying, it was still then again about getting the marks to get the best and, winning the awards, and then opening a business and growing a business and making more money, and about being recognized and, getting business awards. It's like that was what it was, all external. But internally, I felt like a fraud, an imposter. I wasn't good enough. Internally, I certainly didn't feel like a success, but it was still this push to earn more money, to grow bigger, to, get to, it was always my definition at that stage when I first started running my business, and, I was doing all these marketing courses and everything. It's like, grow a six-figure business. Everyone was about growing a six-figure business. So that was me, growing a six-figure business. And I grew a six-figure business. And then it was like, okay, now you've got to a six-figure business. Now you've got to do a multi-six-figure business. So I continued to push and push and push till I got to the multi-six-figure. And then we get, well, okay, next is seven-figure. And there was eight-figure after that. And I'm going, okay, let's just stop a minute here. Do I really want a seven-figure business? What does that mean? Is that really a definition of success for me? Because by this stage, I was, it was probably only 5-6 years ago that I was kind of at that level, the multi-six figures, and looking at, seven figures. And I'm going, hang on, do I want to continue to work that hard to grow a business, which meant growing a team even bigger than what I'd already had, to get to that six-figure mark? And yes, there was a lot of fear around that, but also there was a lot of, what do I really want in my life? And it was just a stop and pause. What do I want in my life? So I'm going to ask you, that was my story. What's your definition of success? When did you, first decide you want to continue to push for more and more success? Was this something inside of you, or was it something you think that you learnt from others? Maybe your parents were successful in whatever career they had, and they always, pushed you to be more and more and more successful. I know for me personally, my driver wasn't so much that my parents were successful. My driver was to be more successful than my parents. We didn't have a lot of money when I grew up. There was 5 of us. I was the eldest of 5. There were a lot of things we missed out on. My father was working 2 jobs. He was studying to be an accountant, something which he never ever achieved. My mother, she ran her own business for a little while, but they struggled. And for me, my success driver was to actually be better than that, and I went on. I got an accounting degree. I finished that. I actually have 2 degrees. I was the first person in my family to go to university and get a degree. And in my immediate family, I'm still the only one who has gone to university, and I have 2 degrees. But is that success? What does that mean? And when it comes down to it, what does all of that mean? And I think for women, we've been very much driven by, this is the definition of success, just to keep achieving more, achieving more, achieving more. And as women, we kind of, our role over the last couple of generations has really evolved. So we've kind of come from being, the family caretaker and being the housewife. And then, we kind of got our liberation. We stepped out into the world and we started to compete out in the world, which meant we had to compete with men. And that meant we were taking on the masculine definition of success, which is very, very external. And that doesn't always sit well with women, because for many of us, we had that, that climbing of success, but we also were the caretakers, the nurturers. We raised the children. We were kind of juggling it all. And, the definition of success became, well, how can we do it all? How can we raise a healthy family, a functional family, and still rise within, the success levels with that corporate running a business? And many of us failed at that. And I actually wrote a book about that called Secret Mum's Business. It is so hard to be able to do all of that, and to be able to be that nurturer, to be that mother, to be that, the person that looks after, and raises families, but still is striving to make more money, to get more status. There's a bit of a conflict there because that's masculine against feminine energy. And for most of us, that masculine energy became the driver. The success became the driver. And I don't know about you, but there are many, many times when I felt like I failed at being a mum. There were times I can remember, and I still remember this to this day. I was running a multimodality clinic in the Northern Beaches in Sydney. It's called the Amber Tree. And I used to work most Saturdays. And this particular Saturday, I took the day off. I had no clients because my son was playing in a soccer game. So I was going to go along and watch him at his soccer game. Now, this was in the days when we were first kind of starting to carry our phone around so that we could still be contactable. And I had the Nokia, the one that looked like the BlackBerry, and it was kind of in my pocket. And I was checking my emails, and I was on there looking at my emails to see what had come in and responding to someone, something like that. But I was on my phone. My son scores a goal, the first goal, and I think at the time he was about 7, the first goal at soccer he has ever scored. My eyes were on a phone, and I missed that. But as soon as everyone's jumping up and down, like, oh, yeah, great. He's going, Mum, did you see me? Did you see that goal I scored? And I'm like, yes, dear, I did. You were brilliant. I didn't see it. So whilst I was driving for success in my business and to be supporting others, the other part of me felt like a failure because I wasn't there to watch my son's very first goal. Now, he has scored many other goals since, and I've seen them, but there's only one first. And that's the cost. That's one of the costs of striving for success. And there's other costs as well. It's like the harder we work, then what does the toll take on our body, because we get more and more stress, and that starts to impact our health. And I work with many women who are struggling with their health, and it's all driven by the stress, and the stress is being driven by the success that they're trying to achieve, and the bigger your business gets, or the higher you get up the corporate ladder, the more responsibility you have. Maybe you've got team, you've got staff there, you have to keep going because other people are dependent on you. So that adds more stress. And then there's it's like, what do we give up for that? What's the cost of that? I know for me, it was freedom. I didn't have the freedom to be able to do the things with my kids that I wanted to. There were many times that I missed out because I was working, and that's probably one of my biggest regrets. My kids are both adults now, and I don't see them as often because they live interstate. But it's like, if I had have done things differently, if I hadn't been pushing for so much success, would life have been different? I don't know. I don't know that. But I do know that for me now, freedom to be able to choose how to spend my time is so much more important than the amount of money that I earn. Me to be able to hike, the moment I'm doing 2 hikes a year, at least one of them, and at the moment actually 2 of them are overseas. So I'm getting to travel. I never traveled when I was younger because I was too busy building success. I'm doing it now because I've set myself up. I've got the income that I can actually do that. I've got the resources. I've got the time. And as I am starting to rebuild my business again, I'm not going to give that up. I'm building something that is about supporting other women, but it's also about supporting what I want. It's not about making having $1 million business. Guarantee you that's not where I want to be, because I'm not prepared to give up my freedom. I'm not prepared to give up my regular hikes. I'm not prepared to, give up the opportunity to travel to different parts of the world because I didn't have those opportunities when I was younger. I'm not prepared to give up a sense of peace that I have in the morning when I sit outside of my back deck and just sit there and, watch the ducks fly in, sometimes see kangaroos. I'm not prepared to give that up anymore, because my success now is very much internally driven, not externally driven. So it's, my success now is more about being healthy, about being mobile. It's like that is a big part of success for me, being able to move my body, which means I can hike, it means I can dance, it means I can get up out of a chair, being healthy, having, a strong community around me. And I'm starting to rebuild that. I haven't had that since we moved interstate a couple of years ago, but I'm starting to build that strong community around me. And I'll be sharing something that I'm working on that I'm really, really excited about, which is very much about community. That's coming up shortly. I'm going to share something soon about that one. But, I've got the freedom. I've got the freedom to choose what I want to do. I've got the time, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to work. And I've found this in the last 6 months, and I have to tell you, I'm starting to get bored. So that's a sign for me. It's time for me to, create something different, something softer, something more gentle, something that that nourishes my soul as well as supports others. I really want to support women to live their best life as they're coming into this third stage of life. And I really want to be excited about my life, about, working with women, about, my business. I don't want it to drain my energy anymore. So success for me very much comes from an internal driver now. It's not about making $1 million. It's not about even having a multi-six-figure or a six-figure. It's not about that. Yes, I want to be paid for the work that I do, but I don't need to be making massive amounts of money. I am in a very, very privileged state in that I did have this success. My husband and I have set ourselves up. We've got a great superannuation plan that is able to support the lifestyle that we want. So I don't need to be making a lot of money, but I do need to be paid for the work that I do. And I'm very clear about that, because for many, many years, I wasn't. I worked very, very hard to pay everybody else, and there was never enough left over for me. So now it's important that, yes, I get compensated, but I don't need a lot of money. It's more about the internal. My success and my richness in life comes from how it makes me feel. And I've probably shared this on the podcast before, but, for me, my definition of my life success, not my business success, my life success, is to be still hiking around the mountains when I'm in my 70s, to still be able to pull on a backpack and put on my boots and go hiking in different areas in the world. And because I know women who are doing that, I hike with women that are doing that. I want to be that woman. That's what success means to me. And along the way, I want to be able to support other women as well and show other women what's possible. I want to change that conversation around being a successful woman and what does it take. I think Brene Brown, I read this and I think it came from Brene Brown, and I think she kind of said that, success in our 30s is about growing, it's about building something. But then as we get older, success is about choosing. And it's not about settling for what we've got. It's about choosing what we want and creating the life that we want. And that takes wisdom. So my question for you, something I ask you to reflect on, is what did success used to mean to you? So in your 30s and 40s, what did success mean for you? What did it look like? Did you achieve it? And now, in your 50s and 60s, what does success mean to you now? What does it look like to you now? And when do you feel most successful? It's a little bit of a reflection. Maybe you'll journal on that. Maybe you'll just think about it. But feel free, if you want, drop me an email, angela@angelacouncil.com. Drop me an email and let me know. Has your definition of success changed? Has your driving for success, has it changed? Because I think that as we get older, maybe success isn't something that we have to earn. It's something more about how we design our life. Rather than building a bigger life, it's about building a life that is more meaningful, more purposeful. That the richness doesn't come from our dollars, the richness comes from our experiences. And maybe success as we age is feeling more aligned with who we truly are, rather than what the world told us we needed to be. So that's it from this week. Hopefully those words of my wisdom, me sharing my story, has given you something to think about. Is it time for you to look at your success? And what does success really mean to you? That's it from me this week. Feel free to share this episode with another woman that you think might also be kind of thinking about, do I want to keep doing this? Do I want to keep pushing myself for external success? Share this. Have a conversation with some other women. A great conversation starter. What does success really mean? And keep an eye out for some news that's coming up very, very shortly on how we can have some of these deeper conversations. That's it from me. Bye for now.